Ancient civilizations reached levels of knowledge and technological development that we're only beginning to grasp today. They used that wisdom to raise colossal structures and survive in the harshest environments. With the collapse of these civilizations, much of their knowledge faded away, though traces remain of what they once understood. Shared myths across different cultures and the presence of certain monuments have led some to believe that this technology came from an advanced civilization wiped out by a cataclysm. In this documentary, we journey through several ancient cultures and the technologies they managed to create, or perhaps the ones they inherited. We'll also explore possible discoveries beneath the pyramids of Giza, where some claim there are underground cities and remnants of lost technology. At the same time, we'll examine how each of these colossal works might have been built, from the most widely accepted theories to the most controversial ones. Maybe what we now call myths are actually just the echoes of forgotten truths. Did a civilization with advanced technology exist before the Egyptians? For a long time, human history has been told through the lens of great empires that left their mark on the world. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Greeks, and the Romans. Even so, there's an idea that has sparked debate among both scholars and enthusiasts. It's the possibility that before those ancient cultures, there was once an advanced society that vanished almost without a trace, erased by a cataclysm of massive proportions. A mother civilization predating Egypt, Sumer, and all others that mastered technological knowledge astonishing for its time. This lost civilization may have developed ways to move colossal stone blocks, possessed advanced astronomical understanding, and perhaps even grasped and controlled certain forms of energy. The idea rests on clues scattered across the planet, fragments of monumental prehistoric constructions, out-of-place archaeological remains, and ancient accounts that speak of a golden age before recorded history. One argument supporting this hypothesis is the existence of monuments that seem far older than previously thought. For example, in Turkey, the archaeological site of Göbekli Tepe, a temple or sanctuary, dates back some 11,000 years, long before the rise of farming or city building. The precisely carved pillars suggest the work of an organized society with sophisticated architectural knowledge. How can we explain that in an era where humans were thought to live only in small nomadic tribes, someone was capable of constructing a temple of such scale? Another clue lies in the myths and stories of many cultures. Across nearly every continent, there are legends of a great flood or disaster that destroyed an earlier world. These tales appear in the Bible, in Sumerian texts, in Hindu traditions, and in the oral histories of indigenous peoples in the Americas and Oceania. All of them describe a powerful civilization erased by a sudden natural event, a flood, an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or a drastic shift in climate. To some researchers, this recurring theme represents a distant memory of the same catastrophe, retold in different forms by the survivors. But if such a civilization really did exist, could its legacy have endured in some way? Might that hidden knowledge have been passed down to later cultures, concealed in plain sight? Some believe the answer is yes, and that the clues may still lie buried in the sands of the desert, within the mysteries of ancient Egypt. Technology of ancient Egypt. To construct their colossal works, the ancient Egyptian civilization developed a wide range of sophisticated technologies that later influenced many cultures. They mastered stone building and block transport, primitive ramps and cranes, the design of columns, and precise land leveling. They also had a number system, applied geometry, sundials, papyrus paper, inks, and a complex writing system, hieroglyphics. On top of that, they understood chemistry. They knew how to preserve bodies and create cosmetics. Egyptian medicine was among the most advanced in the ancient world. Physicians practiced in specialized fields, such as ophthalmology and surgery. They could diagnose by observing the pulse, symptoms, and the patient's overall appearance. An extraordinary example of Egyptian medical knowledge is the use of prosthetics made from leather, wood, and plant fibers. Modern studies have shown these were actually used in daily life, proving a deep understanding of anatomy and biomechanics. But what if some of this knowledge and the technology they used to raise enormous pyramids and majestic temples was inherited from an earlier civilization that collapsed or disappeared? Official history claims that Egyptian civilization began about 5,000 years ago. Yet, there is a school of thought suggesting Egypt was the heir to a much older society, whose roots are lost in time. The ancient Egyptians themselves spoke of a mythical era known as Zepi Tepi, or the first time, a period before the pharaohs when gods were said to have walked the earth and passed down the foundations of knowledge and architecture. At the heart of the Giza Plateau lies a key piece of this theory, the Great Sphinx. This enormous statue with the body of a lion and the face of a man is traditionally linked to Pharaoh Khafra and dated back to around 4,500 years ago. However, several researchers have argued that it is far older than traditionally believed. Geologist Robert Schoch studied the Sphinx and concluded that rainfall erosion on the stone suggests it was carved some 12,500 years ago. Long before the pharaohs, during a time when Egypt received heavy rain. This theory is strengthened by the observation that nearby structures do not show the same type of erosion, and therefore would be more recent. Some experts even propose that the Great Sphinx was originally carved as a full lion. Over time, its head may have been reshaped to resemble a pharaoh, which would explain why the head is disproportionately small compared to the body, a rare proportion in ancient Egyptian art. Another puzzling detail is the layout of the pyramids of Giza and their alignment with the stars of Orion's belt. Engineer Robert Bauval proposed that the three pyramids were deliberately arranged to match the positions of the stars Anatak, Anilam, and Mentaka. This correlation becomes even more striking when the sky is viewed as it would have appeared around 10,500 BC, a date that coincides with the end of the last ice age and the possible existence of that lost ancestral civilization. If this alignment is not a coincidence, it would suggest that the planners of the Giza complex possessed extremely precise astronomical knowledge and a deep understanding of stellar movements over thousands of years. Setting these theories aside, ancient Egypt still stood out for its remarkable achievements in many fields of knowledge. Its architecture continues to amaze. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, built with millions of perfectly aligned stone blocks, demonstrates a level of geometric precision that is difficult to reproduce even with modern technology. No mortar was used between the stones, yet the joints are so exact that in many cases not even a razor blade can fit between them. The pyramid's orientation to the cardinal points is nearly perfect, raising questions about how the Egyptians achieved such accuracy without compasses or modern instruments. In recent years, the desire to better understand the Great Pyramid has led to new studies supported by advanced technology. Among them is the work of Professor Corrado Malanga from the University of Pisa and engineer Filippo Biondi from the University of Strathclyde. They claim to have found evidence of what could be a vast underground city hidden beneath the pyramids of Giza, a discovery that has stirred considerable controversy. Using synthetic aperture radar technology, researchers claim to have detected a network of structures that include vertical shafts, spiral staircases, and cubic chambers, stretching down to a depth of 648 meters or 2,126 feet, and covering nearly 2 kilometers or 1.24 miles beneath the Giza Plateau. Some of these formations may align with the mythical Hall of Records, a legendary library said to hold the lost knowledge of ancient civilizations. Could these supposed underground structures be the remains of a society that existed before the Egyptians? Even more surprisingly, beneath the Pyramid of Khafra, 8 vertical cylindrical shafts were identified, hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral ramps that reached the same depth of 648 meters, or 2,126 feet. At the bottom, two massive cubic chambers were detected. The discovery has reignited alternative theories about the true purpose of the pyramids. These underground constructions might have served a mechanical or energetic function rather than a funerary one. This idea resonates with Nikola Tesla's theories that the pyramids tapped into Earth's energy. It also connects with Christopher Dunn's hypothesis, who proposed that the Great Pyramid was a vibrating machine for generating energy. Still, the scientific and archaeological communities have greeted these claims with skepticism. One question, however, remains, without a definitive answer. How were the pyramids built? Most specialists agree on a combination of external and internal ramps, sledges over moistened sand, levers, counterweights, and a complex state infrastructure capable of mobilizing thousands of workers. The classical theory suggests a massive ramp leading from the river quarry, rising higher as the pyramid grew. Another proposes wrapping ramps that turn right at right angles through the pyramid's chambers. According to Jean-Pierre Houdin's theory, the ancient Egyptians used an internal helical ramp to lift the blocks. Once construction was completed, this ramp was sealed. The Diary of Merer, one of the papyri discovered in 2013 near the Red Sea, describes how stone blocks quarried at Tura were transported on barges along the river and through artificial canals to a harbor near the Great Pyramid. There is also a particularly fascinating alternative theory, the idea that the blocks might have been lifted using sound or some form of anti-gravity technology. This hypothesis was proposed by Abdul Wahab El-Qadi in the journal Archaeological Discovery. However, there is no direct evidence or archaeological material to support the large-scale application of this technique. While it is acknowledged as theoretically possible on a small scale, as seen in modern laboratories, it has never been demonstrated for lifting multi-ton blocks. Yet, the technology used to build the pyramids is not the only mystery surrounding this civilization. In the ancient city of Thebes, on the banks of the Nile, the Egyptians constructed one of the most imposing religious complexes in all history, the Temple of Karnak, specifically, the precinct of Amun-Ra. It was not built in a single phase but expanded over more than 2,000 years, with contributions from pharaohs of different dynasties. At the heart of the temple lies its hypostyle hall, on a colossal scale, with massive stone columns among the largest ever constructed, reaching up to 21 meters, about 69 feet in height. It is not known with certainty how they were built with such precision, symmetry, and alignment, though it is believed that the method involved stacking several cylindrical stone blocks, one on top of another. Each block had to be carved with great accuracy to fit perfectly with the next, creating a tall, straight, and stable column. One possibility is that workers used earthen or brick ramps that gradually surrounded the column as it rose, allowing them to keep building upward. To construct the roof, massive horizontal blocks weighing dozens of tons were placed using inclined ramps and the coordinated strength of large groups of laborers. Ancient Egypt also left behind artifacts, discovered in tombs and archaeological deposits, that continue to spark curiosity. One such object is the so-called Saqqara bird, a wooden figure about 2,200 years old, shaped like a bird but featuring characteristics of a glider. Its aerodynamic design has led some researchers to suggest it may reflect an early understanding of the principles of flight, although there is no conclusive evidence. Still, it is striking that the object does not fully match the typical depictions of birds in Egyptian art. Egypt was not the only civilization to leave behind a legacy of knowledge and technologies impossible to overlook. Just a few days' walk away, in Lebanon, another culture produced the largest stone blocks of the ancient world. Baalbek, the ancient city of the giant stones. In what is now central Lebanon lies the remains of an extraordinary monumental complex, Baalbek. Ancient writings connect this site to the Phoenicians, who worshipped Baal, the god of thunder and fertility. However, the massive blocks forming the base of the Temple of Jupiter do not match the construction techniques of any known civilization in the region. This has led several researchers to wonder whether Baalbek was actually built by an earlier culture, now lost to history. Beyond its origins, another great mystery of Baalbek lies in its colossal stones. The stone of the pregnant woman ranks among the largest blocks ever worked in antiquity. Weighing around 1,000 tons, it far exceeds the estimated capacity of known Roman cranes. No evidence exists in Rome, Egypt, or Greece of successfully transporting blocks of this magnitude. According to some authors, the visible weathering on the stone, greater than that seen on the Temple of Jupiter, suggests it could be considerably older, possibly predating the Roman era. In any case, it was perfectly carved, yet left abandoned, tilted at a noticeable angle. Why devote immense resources to quarrying it if they couldn't move it? This raises the possibility that the builders overestimated their capabilities, or that something abruptly halted the process. Some archaeologists believe it was intended for the Temple of Jupiter, while others argue it may have been part of an unfinished expansion. There are also theories suggesting ritual purposes or demonstrations of technical power. The Stone of the South is even more colossal, weighing 1,200 tons. It was discovered in the 1990s, after having remained partially buried for centuries. Its weight doubles the maximum lifting capacity of any known Roman-era technology, since it was never fully detached from the bedrock or put to use. It is believed to have been left in place due to its immense weight or technical complications. The Forgotten Stone, also known as the third monolith of Baalbek, is the largest of all, with an estimated weight between 1,500 and 1,600 tons. Like the other two nearby blocks, it was carved but never moved, suggesting that the builders may have reached a technical limit. To this day, no building, pyramid, or monument in the world has ever incorporated a single block of this size. This leaves archaeologists asking, was it a planning mistake, a symbolic project, or a demonstration of power? The Roman temples that later crowned the site were no less ambitious. The Temple of Jupiter boasted columns nearly 20 meters or 65 feet tall, many of which still stand. Exactly how they were raised remains a partial mystery. Because they were made from Aswan stone, quarried in Egypt about 900 kilometers or 559 miles away, it is thought they were transported along the Nile and across the Mediterranean. To erect them, pulley systems or massive earth ramps may have been used. Next to it, the smaller Temple of Bacchus is better preserved, showcasing remarkable symbolic complexity and architectural precision. It was built with local stone and imported marble. The precision of these stone blocks is astounding. Meanwhile, high in the rugged mountains, the Incas carved stones with such exactness that not even a sheet of paper could fit between them. How did they achieve this without iron or wheels? Technology of the ancient Incas. The Incas, heirs to earlier cultures such as the Wari and Tiwanaku, extended their rule across vast regions of South America, from Colombia to Chile, bringing diverse peoples together under an organized, efficient system that respected the natural environment. What truly sets the Incas apart is the level of technology they developed without an alphabetic writing system, without the wheel, and without hard metal tools. Everything they achieved came from observation and accumulated experience. One of the most astonishing aspects of their technology is architecture. In places like Sacsayhuaman, there are walls made of enormous stone blocks weighing up to 120 tons. These were carved and fitted with remarkable precision. Their cuts are not straight or uniform, but polygonal and irregular, which gives the structures exceptional seismic resistance. It is remarkable that these constructions, between 5 and 8 centuries old, still stand strong, while many modern buildings have collapsed with ease. It is thought that the irregular fittings between blocks allow the walls to withstand earthquakes by absorbing and dispersing energy, revealing not only advanced architectural knowledge, but also a deep understanding of natural forces. But Inca engineering did not stop there. The Huapac Nan, or Royal Road, was a vast network stretching 30,000 kilometers, or 18,641 miles, connecting cities, fortresses, agricultural centers, and sacred sites. Among its components were suspension bridges made from plant fibers. The Ques Oaxaca, which spans the Apuramic River, is a living example of this ancient technique, built with Itku and Andean grass. It is renewed every year thanks to the communal work of local people who preserve this traditional knowledge. In the field of agriculture, the Incas developed systems that today would be considered examples of climate adaptation. Terraces, still visible in places like Pisac, were stepped platforms built into the Andean slopes. They made use of natural incline to conserve water and create microclimates favorable for crops. The site of Moray stands out as an exceptional case of advanced agriculture. Here, the Incas built concentric circles of terraces at different levels, generating a thermal variation between the upper and lower areas. This allowed them to cultivate different plant species adapted to various altitudes. Many researchers believe that Moray functioned as an agricultural laboratory, where seeds and climate conditions were tested. To organize such a vast empire without an alphabetic writing system, the Incas developed quipus, systems of knotted strings used as coded records. These cords were employed to track taxes, censuses, harvests, and possibly even historical accounts. Another remarkable trait of Inca civilization was its ability to design cities and complexes without written plans or known graphic systems. Cities such as Cusco and Machu Picchu reveal detailed planning with distinct sectors and precise integration with nature. It has been suggested that the Incas used three-dimensional models, visual mnemonics, and perhaps adapted quipus to represent structures. The first striking feature of Machu Picchu is its location, 2,400 meters or 7,874 feet above sea level, nestled among mountain peaks in a region prone to earthquake and torrential rains. Yet, its buildings have withstood nearly 6 centuries. The walls feature a trapezoidal design, and the city between the stones is so precise that it prevents water from seeping through and keeps the blocks from shifting during an earthquake. Another major innovation is the hydraulic system. Despite being built on a steep slope, the city had a network of channels, fountains, and drains that allowed for efficient water management. The water came from natural springs and was distributed by gravity through stone-carved channels. This system not only supplied the inhabitants, but also prevented flooding. The agricultural terraces of Machu Picchu, visible on the mountainsides, are another example of smart adaptation to the environment. They served multiple purposes, providing space for cultivation, stabilizing the terrain, and helping regulate soil moisture. Paths, stairways, and plazas are seemingly integrated into the landscape, and the orientation of several buildings aligns with astronomical events. For instance, the Intihuatana, a carved stone located at the top of the site, appears to have functioned as a solar marker that indicated the solstices. While the Incas were building cities high in the mountains, farther north amid dense jungles and open skies, another civilization had already turned the heavens into a calendar and carved it into temples aligned with the gods. Technology of the ancient Maya. The Maya flourished in a challenging environment of dense jungles and scarce, permanent water sources. Despite these conditions, they achieved remarkable advances in fields such as astronomy, architecture, hydraulics, mathematics, urban planning, and acoustics. All of this was accomplished without metal tools, draft animals, or the use of the wheel for transport. Their knowledge was deeply intertwined with their religious beliefs, their calendar, and their close observation of nature. One of the Mayas' greatest achievements was their mastery of astronomy. Across their territory, they built observatories designed to track celestial movements with a precision that is still difficult to explain. A prime example is El Carasol, in the Maya city of Chichen Itza. This circular structure, with its carefully aligned windows, allowed observation of key astronomical events such as solstices, equinoxes, and the phases of Venus. What is astonishing is that they achieved these observations without telescopes or lenses, relying only on rudimentary tools and a relentless dedication to studying the sky. Thanks to such structures, Maya priest astronomers could predict eclipses, plan rituals, and synchronize agricultural events. But the most fascinating construction at Chichen Itza is the Pyramid of Kukulkan. At its base occurs an acoustic phenomenon, as simple as it is puzzling. A single clap at the foot of the staircase produces an echo that returns from above. Transformed into a sound resembling the sharp cry of a bird, the quetzal. The echo may have served a dual purpose: to imitate the quetzal, whose call symbolized divine presence and the heavens, and to invoke Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, the god to whom the pyramid is dedicated. Unlike the Egyptian pyramids, where sound disperses into the air, here the echo returns with precision, as if the stone itself were alive, programmed to respond. This effect is not accidental. It involves careful calculations of slope, materials, and hidden cavities, revealing an ancient knowledge of acoustics. How did the Maya builders achieve this without microphones, speakers, or computers? Is it art, science, or both? Perhaps we will never fully know. The Maya developed several calendars, among which the most notable are Tzolk'in, a 260-day cycle used for religious rituals and divination, and the Ha'ab, a 365-day calendar representing the solar year. Both calendars were interwoven to form longer cycles, allowing events to be tracked across extended periods. The Maya solar calendar was more precise than the Julian calendar used in Europe for centuries. With a margin of error of only 0.002 days per year, an accuracy born from generations of astronomical observation. In the field of hydraulic engineering, despite living in regions without permanent rivers, they created complex systems to collect, store, and distribute water. In cities like Tikal, archaeologists have found artificial canals, drains, and underground reservoirs. The organization of Maya cities also demonstrates a high level of urban planning. Great centers such as Tikal and Calakmul were laid out hierarchically and symmetrically. Ceremonial zones, palaces, public plazas, housing, and agricultural spaces were distributed with logic and intention. Many of these cities were also interconnected by causeways that allowed travel between settlements and supported commerce and administration. In mathematics, the Maya created a vigesimal system based on the number 20 and introduced the concept of zero as a numerical sign within a sequence, long before it appeared in Arabic or European systems. Their number system, composed of dots, bars, and shells, was simple yet powerful. Unlike the Roman system, which lacked zero and limited calculation, the Maya system was agile and well suited for representing large quantities and astronomical operations. What is truly astounding about these achievements is that the Maya built their monuments without metals, wheels, or draft animals. Even with those limitations, they erected temples up to 45 meters, or 147 feet high, using local stone and tools made from carved rock. To move large blocks, they likely relied on wooden rollers, ramps, and the coordinated effort of specialized labor groups. Another example of Maya ingenuity is the development of long-lasting pigments, such as the famous Maya blue, which has endured on ceramics, murals, and sculptures for over 1,000 years. After the fall of the Maya observatories, Mesoamerica did not fall silent. On the contrary, a new city rose upon a lake, thundering with war whistles and ritual drums: Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan. Technology of the Aztecs. Amid the lakes of the Valley of Mexico, in a setting of wetlands and volcanoes, the Mexica civilization, known today as the Aztecs, emerged. Their empire, built in just a century, combined engineering, astronomy, art, agriculture, medicine, and religion into a highly structured social system. Although they lacked advanced metalworking techniques and had no draft animals, the Aztecs devised ingenious solutions to the challenges imposed by their environment. One puzzling artifact found among Aztec remains is the so-called death whistle, or a hecachali, a ceramic instrument shaped like a human skull or stylized cranium that was used in funerary practices or warfare. What is striking is not only its appearance but also the sound it produces, a chilling scream, eerily similar to a human cry of anguish. Something like this. Its effect is deeply unsettling. It is believed that these whistles were used as tools of psychological warfare, blown by dozens or even hundreds of warriors in unison before charging into battle. The city of Tenochtitlan, the capital of the empire, was a marvel of urban planning. Founded on a series of islets in Lake Texcoco, its construction relied on sophisticated hydraulic technology. Elevated causeways connected the city to the mainland. Drawbridges could block access in case of attack. Navigable canals served as transport routes, and twin aqueducts carried fresh water from distant springs. At its height, Tenochtitlan had around 200,000 inhabitants, making it one of the largest cities in the world. Its ceremonial center, with temples, palaces, and markets, was organized according to astronomical and religious principles. Medicine was another field in which the Aztecs made significant progress. They had an advanced knowledge of medicinal plants built on centuries of observation. Cacao was used as a cardiac stimulant, chicolote as a pain reliever, and plants like arnica to treat wounds. Knowledge was recorded and transmitted through codices, manuscripts made from deerskin and painted with natural pigments. They were both works of art and visual systems of information storage, encoding calendars, tributes, genealogies, myths, and agricultural knowledge. Some of the most renowned include the Codex Borbonicus, the Codex Borgia, and the Codex Mendoza. Weapons also reflected remarkable technological design. The maquahuitl, a wooden sword edged with obsidian blades, was capable of inflicting devastating wounds. According to colonial chronicles, it could even decapitate a horse with a single blow. Astronomy was deeply integrated into Aztec architecture and rituals. Temples like the Templo Mayor were aligned with solar events such as the equinox, when the sun rose precisely between its two towers. The tracking of Venus, represented by the god Tlahuzcalpentecutli, was essential for determining dates of war, planting, and sacrifices. While Tenochtitlan thrived among canals and chunampas, in the distant lands of the Indus, another culture had already built geometric cities, silent, precise, and governed by order, rather than gods. Technology of the Indus Valley Civilization. Spread across a vast territory that covered what is now Pakistan and part of India, this culture developed urban centers as advanced as Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Unlike other civilizations such as Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley stood out for its sophisticated urban planning, apparent lack of rigid social hierarchies, and a form of organization that seems to have prioritized equity and social stability. Mohenjo-Daro, one of the largest settlements of this civilization, was built on an elevated artificial platform, possibly to protect it from seasonal floods. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid, with straight avenues intersecting at right angles. The houses, made of standardized baked bricks, included wells, private bathrooms, and drainage systems that connected to underground sewers. This level of urban hygiene was exceptional for its time, surpassing that of many modern cities well into the 19th century. Harappa, another great city of the valley, also reveals a high degree of standardization in architecture. Houses were organized in blocks, many with interior courtyards, while public spaces included warehouses, gathering places, and structures that may have served as markets. In both cities, a repeated construction pattern can be observed, indicating that a shared set of urban regulations existed. This level of planning was not accidental. It reveals an advanced understanding of civil engineering, logistics, and resource management. One of the emblematic artifacts of this culture is the so-called unicorn seal. Thousands of these seals have been found throughout the Indus region. They depict human figures, stylized animals, and a pictographic script that remains undeciphered. Some researchers believe they were used in commercial transactions, serving as personal signatures or marks of ownership. One of the most striking features of the Indus Valley is the absence of centralized power elements, such as monumental temples, royal palaces, or tombs filled with weapons and treasures. Unlike Egypt, where pyramids reflected a rigid hierarchy, or Mesopotamia with its ziggurats dedicated to specific deities, no clear evidence of massive religious buildings has been found in the Indus. Nor have statues of kings, armies, or symbols of military dominance been discovered. This apparent absence of organized violence has led some researchers to think that it was an egalitarian society, where collective planning and shared norms replaced imposed power. Another intriguing trait of this culture is the possibility that they used primitive forms of visual coding. Some experts suggest that the geometric patterns found on pottery, seals, and ornaments may have been visual ways of transmitting ideas, reminders, or instructions without the need for an alphabetic language. While the symbols of the Indus faded into the silence of time, Chinese sages were refining calendars, mixing elixirs in jade flasks, and creating inventions that would travel centuries later along the Silk Road. Technology of ancient China. Across successive dynasties, the ancient Chinese built palaces, walls, and temples, and developed technologies that transformed science, warfare, writing, and navigation. One of China's lesser-known architectural enigmas is the Yangshan Quarry, located near Nanjing. There, monumental stone blocks were cut with astonishing precision. The most famous, known as the Steel Block, measures nearly 16 meters, about 53 feet long, 6 meters, or 19.68 feet high, and weighs around 16,000 tons. It was never finished or transported and remains partially detached from the bedrock. How did they intend to move such an immense mass in ancient times? The quarry's cutting techniques reveal polished surfaces, right angles, and tool marks that suggest advanced planning. Although the extraction was never completed, the attempt itself reflects unprecedented architectural ambition and a deep understanding of stone, balance, and volume. In astronomy, the ancient Chinese also excelled. One representative instrument was the armillary sphere, a structure of concentric rings representing the movements of planets and stars. By rotating the rings, they could calculate solstices, equinoxes, and seasons with high precision. Another remarkable invention was Zhang Heng's seismograph, created in the 2nd century and considered the first of its kind in the world, capable of detecting distant earthquakes. It had a circular structure decorated with dragon heads holding bronze balls. When a quake struck, a ball would drop from a dragon's mouth into the waiting jaws of a metal frog below. The dragon that released the ball indicated the direction of the tremor. Although its inner workings are still studied, the principle behind the device reveals a sophisticated grasp of vibration and mechanics. In knowledge and communication, the Chinese revolutionized history with the invention of paper. Credited to Cai Lun in the 2nd century, the original process involved pounding tree bark, hemp, and old fishing nets, then spreading the pulp into thin sheets on a mesh. Another decisive innovation was the invention of gunpowder. By mixing saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal, Chinese alchemists discovered an explosive substance, first used in rituals and fireworks. Its military applications, however, soon followed. Finally, the magnetic compass allowed sailors to navigate even under clouded skies. The Chinese discovered that magnetite, a naturally magnetized stone, aligned itself with Earth's poles. Mounted on a floating needle or suspended device, it consistently pointed north. Thanks to this technology, Chinese traders and explorers charted reliable sea routes across the South China Sea, long before the rest of the world understood terrestrial magnetism. Chinese sages fixed the north with a magnetized needle. By contrast, the engineers of Tiwanaku, without compass or iron, shaped stone, mastered water, and farmed the skies at nearly 4,000 meters, or 13,123 feet, above sea level. Technology of Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku, a key culture in pre-Inca South America, thrived for nearly a millennium and left behind a legacy of architecture, agricultural knowledge, and astronomical observations that demonstrate remarkable technical skill. One of the most enigmatic sites of this civilization is Pumapunku, a section of the Tiwanaku complex with massive stone blocks, some weighing up to 130 tons. These blocks were transported from distant quarries and carved with near-surgical precision. The surfaces are smooth, the cuts straight, and the angles well-defined, as if shaped with modern tools. The precision of the H-shaped stones, designed to interlock, shows sophisticated architectural planning and advanced mastery of carving techniques. The stability of these structures also reveals an advanced understanding of earthquake-resistant engineering. Tiwanaku lies in a seismically active region, yet many of its constructions have withstood centuries of tremors and shifting ground. Metallurgy reached a high level of complexity as well. Tiwanaku artisans produced tools and ornaments from alloys of copper, bronze, arsenic, and tin. Combinations that required precise knowledge of smelting temperatures and chemical proportions. The civilization also left clear evidence of refined astronomical knowledge. The Kalasaya Temple, a rectangular stone platform, is aligned with solstices and equinoxes. From specific observation points, builders could accurately determine key moments of solar year, which were used to regulate agricultural and ritual cycles. On the other side of the world, in a land shaped by monsoons and ancient wisdom, another civilization was also fusing engineering and spirituality in rock-carved temples and observatories aligned with the heavens. Technology of ancient India. Over the centuries, ancient India produced advances that left a lasting mark on architecture, mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. One of the most astonishing feats of hydraulic engineering in the ancient world, Chand Baori, located in the village of Abhanari in Rajasthan. Built around the 9th century, it served as a water reservoir, a gathering place, and a refuge from extreme heat. The structure descends 20 meters, about 65 feet, and features 3,500 steps spread across 13 levels, forming a flawless geometric pattern. What makes Chand Baori remarkable is how it kept water cool during dry seasons, using natural ventilation and architectural design. Another monument that defies logic is the Kailasa Temple in Ellora, carved directly from a single rock formation from the top down. It required the removal of 200,000 tons of stone. Unlike other temples built with stacked blocks, Kailasa was excavated as one continuous piece, with extraordinary precision in its columns, sculptures, and reliefs. How this was achieved remains unknown. Its alignment, symmetry, and scale show no visible errors or adjustments, suggesting the builders planned the entire project in detail before carving began. This method, leaving no room for correction, required spatial vision and mathematical ability that continue to astonish modern engineers. Indian mathematicians were also pioneers in conceiving zero as an independent number, a concept fundamental to the decimal system. They also calculated an approximation of pi close to 3.1416, long before it was adopted in Europe. Rapa Nui technology. On a remote Pacific island, a civilization arose whose legacy remains as enduring as it is mysterious. The Rapa Nui people of present-day Easter Island managed to erect hundreds of monumental sculptures, develop agricultural systems suited to a harsh environment, and sustain a complex ritual and astronomical tradition. Cut off from the rest of the world, with no access to metals, draft animals, or abundant resources, the ancient Rapa Nui learned to make the most of what the land and sky provided. Their story shows that technology does not always require advanced tools, but rather ingenuity, observation, and communal organization. The most striking expression of their technical skill is the moai, stone statues carved with precision and scattered across the island. Some of these figures reach up to 10 meters or 32.8 feet in height and weigh as much as 80 tons. They were sculpted from volcanic rock, quarried at Rano Raraku crater. There, most of the statues remain, many unfinished or still attached to the bedrock. What is astonishing beyond their appearance is their transport. From the quarry, hundreds of moai were moved to ceremonial platforms, distributed across the island, some located far from their source. All of this was accomplished without wheels, draft animals, or abundant forest cover, as the island's vegetation gradually disappeared. Several theories have been proposed about how these massive statues were moved. One suggests a system of ropes and rocking, where 3 groups of people coordinated the motion, 2 pulling from the sides and 1 from behind. By alternating tension on the ropes, the moai advanced with a swaying movement, giving the impression of walking. This hypothesis has been proven viable in recent experiments, where replicas were moved with relative stability. Another theory, now less supported, held that the moai were transported on sledges and wooden rollers. However, the island's progressive deforestation and antiquity would have made this method impractical. But Rapa Nui technology was not limited to the monumental. They also developed a form of writing or symbolic system known as rongo rongo, carved on wooden tablets with curved signs and anthropomorphic figures. It remains undeciphered. Some researchers believe it may have been a phonetic or symbolic script, while others think it was used as a mnemonic aid for sacred chants, family lineages, or star lore. What is known for certain is its unique reading method. It began at a lower corner, read left to right. Then the tablet was rotated 180 degrees for the next line, like a winding serpent. The existence of such a complex system, developed in isolation, reinforces the idea that the Rapa Nui had a profound intellectual tradition, though fragmented by time and history. Another remarkable aspect of the Rapa Nui knowledge is the astronomical orientation of many moai. Research has confirmed precise alignments with celestial events, such as solstices, equinoxes, and certain stars. A notable case is the ceremonial platform Tangariki, whose orientation matches the sunrise at the southern winter solstice. An observation achieved through careful skywatching. The ancient Rapa Nui lacked optical systems, but they relied on generations of sky observers, who recorded celestial movements and aligned their constructions to these events. Nabatean technology. In the heart of the Arabian Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, the Nabateans built cities whose very existence still seems inexplicable and whose engineering continues to astonish. Among their greatest legacies is Petra, a city carved into the sandstone cliffs of Jordan. Here, the Nabateans applied advanced knowledge of the terrain to sculpt temples and tombs directly into the rock. They built from the top down, chiseling with iron and copper tools. shaping steps, columns, doorways, and reliefs with geometric precision that has endured for centuries. This technique demanded meticulous planning. A single mistake could ruin an entire structure, so every cut had to be executed with foresight and skill. The masterpiece among these works is the Treasury of Petra, which demonstrates complete mastery of rock carving, featuring Corinthian columns, pediments, and sculptures integrated seamlessly into a vertical wall. Yet, even more astonishing is what sustained life in Petra: its hydraulic engineering. In a region of scarce rainfall and extreme temperatures, the Nabateans built a system for capturing, storing, and distributing water that ensured a constant supply. They installed dams, retention walls, and sedimentation basins that filtered the water before it was stored. This network allowed thousands of people to live and prosper in Petra for centuries. Even during years of drought, the system retained enough water to meet the city's needs. The urban design of Petra also responded to extreme conditions with bioclimatic solutions. Streets and plazas were oriented precisely to maximize shade during the hottest hours of the day, and to allow air currents to circulate and cool the environment. To the south, in what is now Saudi Arabia, the Nabateans left another impressive city, Hegra, a secondary but vital hub in the Nabatean trade network, especially among the incense routes and caravan trails. Its funerary monuments were carved into the rock, with facades that combined Hellenistic, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian influences. Dozens of monumental tombs surrounded the city, many inscribed with detailed names of their owners and exact dates. The infrastructure of Hegra shows that the Nabateans applied a hydraulic system comparable to Petra's in the middle of the desert. They managed to sustain farmland, orchards, and gardens through extraordinary water management. Unlike empires that expanded through armies and fortifications, the Nabateans built their legacy on adaptive intelligence. They mastered water without visible rivers, created coolness without electricity, designed cities that breathed with the landscape, and carved their memory into living stone. Technology in ancient Lycia. In the mountainous region of southwestern Anatolia, among canyons, valleys, and rugged coasts, a civilization emerged that combined great aesthetic sensibility with technical solutions adapted to difficult terrain: ancient Lycia. The independent-minded people left behind a unique architectural legacy that still astonishes today for its originality, precision, and boldness. Far from the great cities of Egypt or Mesopotamia, the Lycians developed a culture rooted in stone and landscape. Carving their living spaces, places of worship, and eternal resting sites directly into the rock. A defining feature of their technology is rock-cut funerary architecture. These tombs, embedded into often inaccessible cliff faces, reproduce the shape of houses or temples, complete with detailed facades, carved columns, and gabled roofs. At sites like Panera, the tombs are stacked one above another, some reaching up to 50 meters. or 164 feet above the ground. The precision of the reliefs, the finely finished architectural details, and the scale of these works indicate that the builders possessed both artistic mastery and advanced knowledge of scaffolding, pulleys, or suspended platforms. These were carefully planned constructions that replicated real homes, reflecting the Lycian belief that death was a continuation of life, an eternal home, elevated and protected. The placement of tombs in steep and lofty sites may also have carried symbolic meaning. Height as a way of drawing closer to the gods, as a sacred and secluded space, or as a marker of social status. Another distinctive aspect of Lycian technology is the creation of colossal sarcophagi. In places like Olympus, cemeteries are filled with these monumental structures, carved from a single block of stone and capped with curved roof-like lids. Some measure over 3 meters, or 9.84 feet in length, and weigh several tons. What is impressive is not only their size, but also their distribution across elevated or sloping terrain, where transporting them seems almost unimaginable. Many bear inscriptions in the Lycian script, symbolic reliefs, or carved scenes from the life of the deceased. Zapotec technology. In the mountains of Mexico's Oaxaca Valley, the Zapotecs built a city that defies both the landscape and time: Mont Alban. This monumental urban center, constructed on a flattened summit of a mountain, served as a ceremonial and political hub, a feat of engineering and planning without precedent in Mesoamerica. The first striking aspect is the very location of Mont Alban. The Zapotecs leveled the top of an entire mountain, carving its slopes and creating artificial terraces where once there was only rock and vegetation. This endeavor, carried out over 2 millennia ago, required the massive movements of tons of earth and stone, accomplished without draft animals or metal tools. It was achieved through human strength, wooden shovels, and a complex social organization capable of coordinating thousands of people under a single vision. The result was a vast esplanade at the summit, with plazas, pyramids, temples, and observatories arranged with mathematical precision. Mont Alban also features urban planning aligned with astronomical phenomena and the cardinal points. From certain platforms, the Zapotecs could observe the sunrise and sunset on key agricultural calendar dates, such as solstices and equinoxes. At the same time, the Zapotecs incorporated seismic-resistant technology into their constructions, adapting to a region prone to earthquakes. They used stone blocks and earth fill to build solid platforms that absorbed ground vibrations. Beyond its role as practical engineering, Mont Alban conveyed a political message. It symbolized Zapotec dominance over the valley. From this vantage point, they controlled trade routes, monitored the movements of neighboring peoples, and held rituals that reinforced their connection with the heavens. Technology in the Persian Empire. In the heart of Western Asia, the Persian Empire rose as one of the largest and most organized civilizations of antiquity. It stretched from the shores of the Aegean Sea to the Indus Valley, encompassing multiple cultures, languages, and territories. To sustain such a vast empire, the Persians relied on military power and employed a series of technological, administrative, and architectural advances. Across every aspect of the empire, one can see a clear logic of control, organization, and cohesion. One of the Persians' greatest achievements was their network of royal roads, an advanced transportation system for its time. The Persian Royal Road connected the city of Susa, in present-day Iran, with Sardis, in Anatolia, spanning 2,500 kilometers or 1,553 miles. Royal messengers could cover great distances in just a few days, delivering imperial orders and messages with unprecedented speed. This system, an early model of the modern postal service, enabled centralized administration, boosted trade, ensured military supply, and reinforced political control over the provinces. A technology that combined functionality, aesthetics, and environmental knowledge was the Badgur, or wind tower. Found in cities like Yazd, these structures captured outside air and funneled it indoors, cooling it through evaporation and helping inhabitants endure the empire's scorching summers. Persepolis, the capital of the empire, still astonishes with its grandeur, harmony, and ability to project power. Built as a ceremonial center, it was designed to embody strength, order, and wealth. The reliefs adorning its walls depict delegations of subject peoples bringing offerings to the king. Each figure is distinguished by unique clothing, hairstyles, and gifts, symbolizing diversity organized under Persian rule. The city's layout reveals a deep understanding of space, environment, and light. Buildings were arranged with balance, featuring vast courtyards, majestic columns, and pathways that guided visitors through the city, as though in a ceremonial procession. Time itself was carefully organized by the Persians. The Zoroastrian calendar, adopted as the official model, divided the year into 365 days and 12 months. It had no weeks, but included an intercalary day added periodically to balance the solar cycle. Writing served both as a religious medium and as a tool of economic and political control. Detailed records allowed satraps, regional governors, to report to the central authority, ensuring a tax system that kept the empire functioning. Militarily, the Persians excelled not only in the sheer size of their armies, but also in their standardized techniques. Their infantry used curved wicker shields, long spears, double-headed axes, and composite bows that combined strength with flexibility. Army logistics included engineers who built bridges, roads, and mobile storage facilities, enabling rapid advances and reliable supply even in distant territories. The elite corps of the Immortals, a force of 10,000 soldiers whose number was always kept constant, projected an image of overwhelming power and symbolic invincibility. Technology in the Assyrian Empire. In the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, where some of the earliest human civilizations flourished, an empire arose whose strength lay in its armies and its ability to build, organize, and astonish. The Assyrian Empire. Over centuries, the Assyrians developed a highly effective model of state organization, with a network of fortified cities, irrigation systems, written archives on clay tablets, and monuments that reflected both power and technical mastery. One of their most striking creations is the Lamassu, a hybrid creature with the body of a bull or lion, the wings of an eagle, and a human face, symbolizing protection and authority. These figures were carved from a single block of stone and could weigh up to 30 tons. The choice of material, its extraction from distant quarries, and the transport of such massive blocks required advanced logistics. Although the Assyrians lacked modern machinery, they managed to move these colossi using ramps, wooden rollers, and organized labor. Once at their final destination, often flanking monumental gateways, they were set in place with millimetric precision. The architecture that incorporated the Lamassu also reflects rigorous and symbolic design. They were not mere decorations, but structural elements within ceremonial access systems, with dimensions carefully calculated to impress visually and project power. Sumerian technology. In the plains of Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a civilization emerged that forever changed the course of humanity: the Sumerians. They are considered the world's first urban culture, founding cities, organizing governments, developing trade, and creating technologies that remain fundamental to this day. Without telescopes or lenses, the Sumerians carefully observed the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. Recording patterns with patience and detail, they identified constellations, established a lunar calendar, and divided the day into 24 hours, each hour into 60 minutes, and each minute into 60 seconds. Priest astronomers watched the sky from elevated terraces, and their observations influenced agriculture, rituals, and state administration. To them, the heavens were a text that could be read, predicted, and codified, and their precision was astonishing for their time. Since they needed to preserve information, they invented a tool of immense importance: cuneiform writing. Using clay tablets and reed styluses, they pressed wedge-shaped symbols into the surface. This technique, initially used for accounting and administrative purposes, evolved to include literature, astronomy, and law. Writing, unlike oral memory, helped preserve ideas intact and transmit them with accuracy through time. One of the most emblematic texts left by this technology is the Epic of Gilgamesh, a mythical tale reflecting on life, death, and power. Over time, the cuneiform system was refined and became the foundation of structured knowledge throughout the region. Sumerian architecture also demonstrated their technical ability and cosmic vision. The ziggurats, stepped towers that rose above their cities, were true feats of engineering. But with sun-dried adobe bricks, these temples included internal drainage systems to carry away rainwater and prevent erosion. Their bases were wide, and the inclination of each level was calculated to ensure stability. Another remarkable innovation was their legal system. Long before Hammurabi's famous code, the Sumerians had already recorded laws on tablets. The Code of Ur-Nammu, written 4,000 years ago, established clear rules for coexistence, with punishments proportional to the severity of the offense. law was no longer subject solely to the arbitrary judgment of a ruler. It became a stable, accessible, and predictable reference. This represents an early example of legal technology, where codification and written transmission allowed norms to be applied systematically. Technology in the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire dominated much of the known world not only through the strength of its legions, but also by the reach of its technology. Wherever they arrived, they built roads, aqueducts, ports, temples, and entire cities that still survive today. One of Rome's lesser-known achievements was the supposed invention of flexible glass. As reported by writers like Petronius and Pliny the Elder, an artisan once presented the emperor with a glass bowl that, when dropped, did not shatter, but merely dented as if it were metal. With a hammer, the craftsman restored it to its original shape. According to legend, the emperor ordered his execution to prevent the value of gold and silver from collapsing. Though there is no direct archaeological evidence of such material, the story suggests that Romans were experimenting with advanced compounds, and that some technologies may have been lost for political or economic reasons. Well documented, however, is Roman concrete, known as opus caementatium. It combined lime, water, pieces of stone or brick, and pozzolana, a volcanic ash abundant in regions like the Bay of Naples. Thanks to this technology, the Romans built structures that still stand today, such as the Pantheon of Agrippa, whose unreinforced concrete dome remains the largest of its kind in the world, or the port of Caesarea Maritima, whose underwater platforms remain intact after 2 millennia. Another cornerstone of the Roman system was the aqueduct, a hydraulic marvel that supplied entire cities with clean, constant water. These networks stretched over long distances, from distant springs to urban reservoirs, crossing mountains, valleys, and plains. To maintain a continuous and steady flow of water, engineers built multi-level arcades, such as those of the Pont de Gard in Gaul, or the Aqueduct of Segovia in Hispania. The Aqueduct of Segovia impresses with its imposing presence and astonishing engineering. Built by the Romans nearly 2,000 years ago, it still stands thanks to the perfect fit of 2,000 stone blocks. To connect their vast empire, the Romans laid out an unprecedented road network, more than 400,000 kilometers or 248,548 miles of paved road linked provinces, fortresses, and cities. Each road followed a multi-layer technique: a base of sand, then gravel, a layer of mortar, and finally stone slabs set with precision. At the heart of many cities rose amphitheaters, spaces for entertainment and social control. The most famous, the Roman Colosseum, could hold up to 50,000 spectators, with radial entrances called vomitoria that allowed the arena to be filled or emptied within minutes. It featured removable floors, underground passages, and mechanical trapdoors from which animals or gladiators could emerge. The acoustics of the space, carefully designed, allowed voices to carry clearly without artificial amplification. Roman military technology also reached a high level of specialization. Their engineers designed catapults, scorpions, and ballista, war machines capable of launching projectiles with accuracy over long distances. Mobile siege towers, clad in fireproof materials, enabled the efficient capture of enemy walls. In addition, every legion included builders who erected modular fortifications, temporary camps, bridges, and roads in record time. Among soldiers, the testudo formation provided collective protection, with overlapping shields, while the gladius, their short sword, became a symbol of efficiency and discipline. Phoenician technology. Along the coasts of the eastern Mediterranean, the Phoenicians built a maritime civilization that transformed the ancient world. Originating from cities such as Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, they created a network of ports, trade routes, and technical knowledge that connected distant cultures. One of their achievements was naval design. They constructed ships with double prows, an uncommon feature at the time. This innovation allowed them to change direction without turning the entire vessel, ideal for both military maneuvers and for loading and unloading in narrow harbors. On their sails, the Phoenicians adopted and perfected the use of triangular sails, which provided better control of course with crosswinds. They also developed astronomical navigation, which enabled them to sail at night. By following constellations such as Ursa Major, or tracking stars like Sirius and Canopus, they could maintain their route even far from shore. Over time, they created maritime route maps and acquired detailed knowledge of seasonal winds, which allowed them to open regular trade routes to places as distant as Gyades, Carthage in North America, and possibly even the British Isles in search of tin. On land, the Phoenicians developed a technology that defined their identity and prestige: the production of Tyrian purple. This dye, extracted from the Murex sea snail, was so costly that it became an exclusive symbol of royalty. Producing just 1 gram of purple required thousands of mollusks and a complex chemical process involving fermentation, exposure to sunlight, and careful handling to achieve vibrant, lasting tones. Beyond the sea and chemistry, the Phoenicians left a legacy that revolutionized written communication: the phonetic alphabet. Unlike cuneiform or hieroglyphic systems, the Phoenician alphabet used 22 symbols, representing consonant sounds, making it easy to learn and apply in trade. It became the direct foundation of Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, meaning that much of today's world reads and writes thanks to this development. Technology in the Byzantine Empire. In the rugged mountains of northeastern Anatolia, perched on a sheer rock wall 1,200 meters or 3,937 feet high, stands a remarkable feat of medieval architecture: the Monastery of Sumela. Its origins date back some 1,600 years, to the time of the Byzantine Empire. Although it was expanded over centuries, its original core already displayed meticulous design and remarkable construction techniques. Located in the Altendir Valley, the complex was carved and built into a nearly vertical cliff, defying all structural logic. Its very existence raises an inevitable question. How was it possible to build a multi-level complex in such an inaccessible place, centuries before modern engineering? Construction required cutting into the rock to form rooms, passages, and chapels, as well as transporting building materials along narrow, steep routes. It is believed that pulley systems, wooden ramps, and hanging platforms were used to lift tools, stone blocks, and decorative elements. But Byzantine technological achievements were not limited to mountain architecture. In the heart of Constantinople, the empire's capital, was born one of the most feared and mysterious weapons in history: Greek fire. This incendiary substance could burn even on water, making it a nightmare for enemy fleets. Its exact composition was a closely guarded state secret and has been lost to time, but ancient accounts suggest it may have contained crude oil, pine resin, quickslime, sulfur, and possibly saltpeter. Another absolute milestone of Byzantine engineering was the construction of Hagia Sophia, the Great Basilica of Constantinople, built under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century. Its central dome, 31 meters, almost 102 feet in diameter, still impresses today with its scale and visual effect. It seems to float above a ring of windows that flood the interior with light. The city's defense did not rely solely on its walls. In the narrow waters of the Golden Horn, the maritime access to Constantinople's inner harbor, the Byzantines installed a simple yet effective technology: a colossal chain stretched from shore to shore, anchored to defensive towers. The chain could be raised or lowered with mechanical rollers. When tightened, it completely blocked enemy ships from entering, forcing them to retreat or face land defenses under unfavorable conditions. Byzantine knowledge was preserved in ink and parchment. Monks and scribes produced illuminated manuscripts of extraordinary technical quality, crafted on high-grade parchment and decorated with natural dyes and metallic pigments, such as powdered gold and beaten silver. These codices included treatises on medicine, astronomy, botany, and geometry, such as the Codex Vindobonensis and the Vienna Dioscorides, a medical text that remained in use well into the modern era. Their value lay not only in their content but also in their production technology: stable pigment mixtures, miniatures encoded with visual information, and standardized scripts that made reading and copying easier. Through these books, Greek, Roman, and Eastern knowledge was preserved and transmitted to Europe, serving as the bridge between the classical world and the medieval Latin West. Thus, we reach the end of this journey through ancient technologies. Might even more astonishing technologies of the ancient world still be awaiting discovery? Could future findings reveal evidence of a civilization older than the Egyptians?